Previously, the protagonist-related functions were implemented. Discover. After the right rocker is released, the player faces and reverts to the original direction. This is definitely unreasonable for players. In addition, when the left joystick controls the player, when moving to the left, the player's muzzle should also be facing to the left. That is to say, the muzzle should follow the direction of motion. It was also discovered that the right joystick controls the player's rotation in the wrong direction. Player orientation. Not aligned with the right joystick direction. These questions. Let's solve it together in this class. First of all, let's solve the first problem. After the right rocker is returned, the player rotates back to the original direction of the question. The reason is that when the joystick returns to its original position, the direction that the joystick represents is the zero vector. So the player will rotate back to the original orientation. The solution is simple. Find the business logic of the joystick control. That is, inside the joystick controller. Control logic for rotation. When the vector represented by the right joystick is zero vector, we don't need to do any processing. Just go back directly. After modification, the test found that after the rocker was returned, the player orientation will not return to the original orientation. This brings us to the second question. That is, the player is facing the problem of inconsistent direction with the right rocker. We found that the logic of the code is fine. So let's look at the node hierarchy. The z-axis orientation of the player node and the player model node is inconsistent. The player model node is rotated by an angle around the y-axis. Let's spin it back and try it. It should be time to modify the scene. To test, I accidentally changed this rotation angle. We found that, after modification, right joystick control, the protagonist's orientation and firing are normal. And finally, let's implement the player's perspective to follow. Which way is the player moving? Which direction should the player's muzzle be facing? At the operational level, that's when the left joystick controls the player's movement. To update the player's orientation synchronously. But since the joystick only controls the direction, movement of the actual protagonist, all are controlled by player controller. So we need to customize components for the player. Add a configuration item. Does the perspective follow? If perspective following is enabled, when the player moves, rotation operation is also required. Find the business logic that controls player movement. Add a perspective to follow the judgment. If perspective following is enabled while moving, perform a rotation operation. At this time, the test still found the above problems. Finally, trace code discovery. We're doing joystick control. It is used in the onUpdate method of joystick controller. Get the direction indicated by the joystick in real time. Then post the event. So, when releasing the joystick, it also gets the direction indicated by the joystick in real time. So, the protagonist will head towards the beginning. Let's just note it out. On update method in joystick controller. Then according to the joystick, publish the corresponding event. If it is the left joystick, publish a mobile event. If it is the right joystick, then publish a rotation event. Afterwards, test. Player perspective follow question. And joystick reset. The player orientation problem is solved. Certainly. Preferably when the joystick is released. Also add an event to post. Depending on the joystick, post different events. The direction of transmission is 0 vector. This way the code will be more robust. But careful students also found a problem. That's when the player moves. The feet didn't move. It's basically animation playing. Does not change with player status. How to solve this problem? Let's leave it to you to think about. Follow us. Perfect it. This lesson, we've refined the perspective of the player as they move and correct some minor issues. In the next lesson we will build a monster system.